All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. Jenna, you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Jenna Cox-Hadley. Jenna, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
All right, thank you so much. So Jenna is the composer, lyricist, and playwright for the original musical titled Wait for Her. Jenna grew up in a musical and mixed race family in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Throughout her education, she distinguished herself with her creative mashups, ear for harmony, and musical leadership. She majored in mathematics and Russian at the U.S. Naval Academy while singing in the gospel choir, including a performance for President Obama and Tom Hanks at the Kennedy Center. Jenna also studied opera, tap dancing, Irish step dancing, and at the Wheaton College, jazz voice to deepen her creative skill set. While in college, Jenna's heart broke learning how many women, many of whom she was close to, had experienced sexual trauma. She began writing Wait for Her, hoping that her grief and intensive research on trauma could be transformed into a life-giving and healing story for survivors and their communities. So first of all, crazy impressive bio, my God. But before we get into that, first, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
So I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Grew up there, lived my whole life there, and now I'm currently in Germany, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why? Why are you there?
My husband's in the army, so we got sent out here, and I was like, this is the perfect creative retreat. Like, I can write, I can create, I can make music, I can study. It's wonderful.
Awesome. All right. So let's get into this. You went to the Naval Academy. First of all, what drew you there?
Oh, so much. But particularly just deepening my leadership skill set. I did so much music and art in high school and really was growing in my leadership in music and in directing. And for some reason, the crossover just clicked, like Naval Academy, like I can learn, I can grow this unique skill set. And I just fell in love with the camaraderie, with the students that I met when I visited. And I was like, there's no better place I'd want to be.
So did you actually go in the service?
So I got medically disqualified after 3 years at the Naval Academy.
Okay.
And had to leave. So
just to get clear on this, your idea was to go to the Naval Academy to get into the service. Can one just go to the Naval Academy?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your goal was to be in the service.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
to be in the service. Yeah, I wanted to serve in the Navy. I was super mesmerized and excited about aircraft carriers and submarines.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So, okay, so let's talk about how things evolved for you. Why don't you tell us how this musical came about?
Yeah, so after I got medically disqualified from the Naval Academy, my whole career just kind of went down the drain because I was expecting to be a naval officer. And I was writing tons of songs, didn't know what my medical issues were, which apparently was all connected to a neck injury that was related to the vagus nerve, which of course is damaged during, trauma. So I was writing all this music coming from this place of deep, like, hurt and loss. When I started running into people who were describing more and more their stories with trauma and sexual assault and just not knowing how to step out of it and how to recover. And somehow all the pieces just clicked. Like with my music, I realized that this style was perfect for theater. And then on the other side of it, I was like, I have to do something for all these people who are presenting their stories to me. They're coming to me, they're telling me their deepest hurt. And like, I felt so helpless. Like I couldn't do anything about it.
So you were in school and people, your friends would just come to you and share
Confide,
these. What'd you say?
like confide.
Confide
Yeah.
in you. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Just out of nowhere. I guess I have one of those faces, people tell you their stories.
Yeah, it happens. So what did you do? I mean, how did you respond? How did you react when you started hearing not just one, but an accumulation of these stories?
Yeah, the first couple times I had no idea how to respond. And the first couple stories I heard were extremely close to home for me.
Mm,
And so I had no idea what to do. And I felt like I had failed that person because I didn't understand trauma symptoms. I didn't sense what was going on in the past, in order to like step in and love or speak truth or whatever was needed. So it was definitely a big learning curve for me. So the first couple stories I heard, I just sat and I listened and just tried my best, just tried to be loving and tried to weed out lies, that these friends were believing about. So just blaming themselves and
mhm.
whatever else. But over time, as the story started accumulating, it just hit ahead for me. Like it just got too many. And I realized I needed to deal with my own like personal grief as sort of this like bystander in this process of pain that other people were going through. And as these stories just totally hit a climax, I wrote a song, called "With Voices Stronger," and my husband was obsessed with it and was making me show it to everybody, and that actually sparked the idea for the entire musical.
So pretty amazing. I mean, here you are hearing these stories and you're like, you've got to do something. That feeling I can totally relate to. Um, you didn't become a therapist, right? You didn't go back to school and whatever, but you did what I guess I want to hear more about that. I mean, because let me just say, when I had an experience like that too, when I was working at a clinic in Northern California, we were assessing and treating young kids who were showing early signs of psychosis. And a lot of the phone calls we would get from parents and therapists, um, uh, they were trying to make referrals to our clinic. And with 99% of these kids, there was trauma that either the therapist didn't see, the parents certainly weren't aware of. And I got to a point where it was like, something needs to be done, right? So what was that feeling for you like when, I mean, because not everyone who listens to stories does something like you did.
Mhm.
So talk more about that.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, you get it. Like once it reaches a certain point of just grief, you do feel like you have to do something. But I do feel like I had a special connection to the material, to just sexual assault survivors, because of the stories that were so close to me and some family history and stuff as well. But I I found that I was able to be a support and an encouragement to some people, but I didn't feel like I was able to give enough. Like I felt like it would have been giving too much of myself, and I would have lost myself in trying to support and give agency, to these friends and family. And so the idea that happened in my mind was to create something that could be a proxy for me, basically.
Mhm.
And so this musical is a stand-in for me, for my friends and loved ones and people that I haven't met and may never meet. But I hope that it could be the stand-in, so that partially for my own like mental health and, yes, yeah, emotional regulation and everything. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that was the way you could most give of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Because we each have different ways that we optimally give and offer. So, all right. So, what happens? How does this unfold?
So, do you mean the process of creating this whole music?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started with that one song I told you about, and my husband and I were just like, I think a story needs to be written about this. Well, my husband, as he was falling asleep, was like, I think you should write a musical about sexual assault. And I was like, what? This is amazing. He doesn't remember suggesting that at all. And I just was up all night after he said that. Like, I had 3 song ideas immediately. I had the title immediately. And I just started writing, and I was in the midst of a bunch of traveling. So I was on planes just writing songs. I was in shops in foreign countries just writing songs. And it took so much time and research, and I just started trying to compile a story to see what came out of my brain. But then I realized where my gaps were and what I didn't know. And so then I went back to college to finish my math degree, because I got medically disqualified after 3 years of school. And so I went back to college to finish, and I was spending every day in the library reading psychology books and books about trauma recovery, and about how music affects the body, and how music affects your embodied cognition, and all this other stuff. And so I was spending all this time on mathematics, trying to incorporate mathematics into the music, and finding ways to connect that to psychology and to therapy and different practices. And just spent a year just devouring books and material, until finally I felt like I had inundated myself so much that I could just write a story. And so, yeah, so I did.
So in short, like the thumbnail, what is the story about?
So in short, the story is about an architect named Ava, who she's pursuing her dream of designing for her favorite architect in the world. She wants to be on her design team, when she is confronted by her trauma, as she starts a new romantic relationship, and then realizes she needs to deal with the past in order to build the future, basically. So she goes through this process of, really the focus is healing in community, where she is able to confide in a couple safe people in her community, and the rest of her community really rallies to, and fumbles and messes up, trying to support and love, and doesn't do it the right ways, but they learn. And yeah.
Wow, sounds very cool. So did you get, where is this, at what stage is this musical at now? What are you trying to do with it? First of all, before you answer that, what is your hope for the musical?
My hope for the musical is generally to communicate that healing is possible. Whether or not that is at a small level in a couple theaters, or that is like on a Broadway stage. I mean, obviously that's the dream. It'd be so amazing to get it there. I think it's possible that the best impact would be the show getting licensed by a bunch of colleges around the country, for example, and just doing versions of it at different colleges, which just, yeah, might be more effective for who I'm trying to reach.
Mm-hmm. But again, the goal is to show that healing is possible.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, it even sounds like just recognition of trauma is crucial too. A lot of people don't even realize they've been traumatized, right? Or many times people think, oh, that's not really trauma. That over there is trauma, right? I can't really say that I've been traumatized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And even for someone like me standing on the side who couldn't recognize it in others, and of course I can't diagnose people, like I'm not trained to do that, but you can see some signs and just try to support people along the way. And I just had no idea what that looked like, what that even was.
In your extensive research and reading, what did you learn? What were you surprised by?
Oh my, so much. I was especially surprised by how much the body really plays a role in healing, just even breathing practices, especially yoga, martial arts. I grew up doing martial arts. I have my black belt, and just I was just shocked to read about how martial arts can play such a healing role, and looking back on like the kids that I trained with, and how healing it probably was for so many people. And I've just been totally astounded by that. I think, as I mentioned before, a lot of a lot of research that I did on music was pretty astounding as well for me, especially from a book called Music and Embodied Cognition. And this book by Arnie Cox, not a relative, but he wrote this book just like trying to explain how music actually connects to our bodies. Like, how does it actually make us feel something? And he goes into, it's more philosophical, but so much of the philosophy is about mirror neurons. And I was like, wait, there is a grand connection here between how we mirror music as it's being created, and how mirroring and rebuilding that safe connection between people is healing from trauma. Like, there's a huge connection here that it just, I mean, totally blew my mind. I was like, can I like kind of trick people into healing when they see my musical? Like, does that work?
Does it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm thinking initially I was kind of joking, but if music, of course, can have, right? When we listen to music, we like feel it changes us. But okay, so you said in part the goal of the musical, in a sense, was to show that healing is possible, to provide. Why that particular goal?
I've found that hope has been one of the hardest things to come by for the survivors that I'm friends with. And I don't feel as though I'm in a place to stand in front of someone and say, like, you're going to heal now. Like, I don't know what their work needs to be. And I want to communicate hopefulness. I want to communicate that healing is possible. And like, maybe it's not Ava's journey, maybe it's not the journey I've written out in the show, but like, maybe if you see someone else heal, you might be able to too. And maybe if you see someone else heal a little bit, not 100%, you can still call that healing. You can still call that growth. So that felt like just what I really wanted to communicate to the survivors in my life, that I just saw so much hope and so much potential. And that was so hard for them to come by.
There's a, as you were talking, I interviewed a woman, a pretty incredible woman by the name of Tama Bryant Davis. She's a very well-known trauma therapist, dancer. I mean, she goes on and on the list of what she does. But she said to me, you know, when I asked her like why she does what she does, she said, you know what, my job, and I think really all trauma therapists' jobs, is to be the hope in the room. And it really kind of resonates with what you're saying too. There's something very simple about that, but it's so profound, right? It's not simplistic. It might be simple, but it's not simplistic, and yet it's so profound. As you're saying, a lot of people don't feel hopeful, like they can even, there's no way I could get out of this. When you were writing this, what were you envisioning? What, talk music, talk actors, bring us into what you're creating.
Yeah. So I have so much vision for this thing. But I'll say a few things. So as far as the music goes, I was envisioning, which felt so lofty at the time, was just a full orchestra, full band, just the full power of music, of strings especially. I found that in my research to be especially healing, but with that undercurrent of a trombone just communicating like that strength and power. And like, so I had a lot of vision there with the music, which my sound designer has actualized in a really amazing way. But I also was envisioning just trying to find the best way to turn emotion into song. And that was what I spent really the most time working on, I think. And I also really wanted to use my diverse background, just from being mixed race, being Hispanic, Black, Swedish, and having done tons of different styles of music and stuff, just wanting to throw that all in there so that like someone could have something to hang on to, or maybe a melody that sticks in their head because it's a little Irish sounding for some reason, or because it sounds like a gospel song or something. And of course, on top of that, I wanted a super diverse cast because it's hard to reach people in different communities, especially if I have a lead who's white. Other people of different races, or even people who are mixed like myself, might not see themselves in that lead character, whereas maybe a white woman still would see themselves in that lead character. And so I really envisioned this bright, diverse cast that where everyone is represented, so that we can see everyone in the process, that it's not just one race or one demographic or one gender that goes through sexual assault or abuse.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of getting it produced, what have you been doing? What do you do? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I would love to get it to a stage. I'm currently applying to a few different festivals. I've done a couple readings of the show. I just did a virtual reading that was produced through a Broadway producers reading series, a
Oh,
virtual
cool.
reading series. Yeah, Ken Davenport has been mentoring me through this process. He's produced quite a few shows on Broadway. And so he helped me, line up the virtual reading that I did. And now I'm just pushing forward into totally new territory for myself. So yeah, some fundraising, some festival applications, hopefully another reading, but in person. There's so many different paths to getting a show produced and staged. And of course, like, I want a producer. I need a producer eventually. So I'm doing everything I can as the creator to keep momentum going and propelling the show until I can find that producer who wants to hop on board.
Let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Jenna Cox-Hadley. Her musical is called Wait for Her. It's an original musical, and her website is jennacoxhadley.com. So when people were coming to you initially and sharing these, confiding in you, was it just women?
Yes, I'm thinking about it for a second. Yeah,
Just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was just women. I had heard secondhand, which I don't know how ideal that is, but I had heard secondhand of a few guy friends who had also been sexually assaulted. And yeah, some family history, where some family grew up in some bad situations, and they're both genders experienced sexual abuse growing up. So I was definitely, passionate about representing both stories in the musical.
Your background in terms of the Naval Academy and studying Russian and math and music. I mean, it's extremely admirable, and it sounds so intensely crazy in the best way. And the way you described things coming kind of colliding beautifully, to kind of inspire you and compel you towards this process and product. Where do you see yourself at this point? And not that there really is a fixed point, but do you see yourself moving towards composing more? What?
Yeah, so I have tons of musical ideas. I have quite a few more I'd like to do. One more that's sort of in the vein of trauma that would, I would hopefully partner with some people to work on a story that is about the refugee experience. As I've spent some time working with refugees, and some of my closest friends I talk to all the time are refugees. And so I'm really passionate about that story, which also is so intertwined with this discussion on trauma. And then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, I really want to write a musical about a certain mathematician, and I think it would be wonderful and brilliant. So I do see myself propelling forward with composition, but I know that my personal mission is, it's my 2-word statement, is empowering voices. And so some of that is through empowering voices in very specific ways where those voices like need empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Through, especially survivors of assault. but also creating music is a way to empower voices and to give people the chance to communicate feelings they couldn't express before.
Awesome. Jenna, man, you are so inspiring. I'm so glad that you're here, and your story is really incredible. I wish you the best. I would love to help you in any way I can, support what you're doing. You're welcome. If that means posting something, we can talk about that later. But what's the best way for people to reach you and get in touch with you?
My website is the best way, either jennacoxhadley.com or waitforherthemusical.com. They're forms that I always check what gets submitted into the forms. So
Okay. And we'll have both of those linked up here at the show notes page at thetraumatherapistpodcast.com. Jenna, awesome. Thank you so much. Love to have you back. And I want to keep posted of what you're doing. Seriously.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'll keep you posted.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. And if you'd like to join the hundreds of other therapists who are each month keeping up to date and informed and inspired about what's going on in the world of trauma, I'd love to invite you to head on over to the Trauma Therapist newsletter. That's the traumatherapistnewsletter.com.